Hi, welcome to today's video. My name's Paul. So today is watercolor landscape painting. I talk a little bit about the materials that I'm using. I'm also talking a bit about abstract art and representational art and where I think my painting style sort of fits on that spectrum. Because I do think that landscape painting is somewhat of a spectrum. It's not a binary thing. This is abstract and this is representational. I don't think it works like that. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to subscribe, just click on the big red button below. Okay, so today is a landscape painting. It's my usual style, is sort of abstract, impressionist style. And as with a lot of my paintings, it's partly imagination, partly memory, and actually in this case I was using a sort of pencil sketch as a reference as well. So I don't really like painting outdoors. I don't like carrying all the different things and trying to set up, and also living in Ireland, it's not the best climate for painting outdoors. It rains a lot, the weather can change very quickly, and I sort of agree with the artist Degas when he said that painting is not a sport. If you enjoy trying to carry easels around and bits of paper and holding things down when the wind picks up and stuff, that's great, but it's not my sort of thing. So I prefer painting in the studio, but I will do sketches outdoors, because all you need then is a pencil and a sketchbook, and if the weather changes, gets worse, you can always just put it in your pocket and go and find a shelter somewhere. So anyway, this painting is partly based on a sketch. Now the sketches I do are very, very basic. They're just sort of blocks of values. There's no colour, it's just all done in pencil. And it's just sketching in the main blocks, the main parts of the image. So the colour is from memory and imagination, and the landscape itself is very loosely based on reality. So this is part of why I think my style of painting is somewhat abstract. Although I think maybe all landscape painting for me is somewhat abstract, because you're taking, a three-dimensional subject, the landscape, and you're condensing it down onto a two-dimensional surface. So there's always going to be a degree of abstraction in that process. When you paint a tree, you're not actually completely painting the tree, you're painting a two-dimensional representation of the tree. Now in terms of materials and things that I'm using, so the paper is watercolor paper, it's 100% cotton, it's 300 grams per square meter, it's about 140 pounds. The colours I use, well, you can see it's a very limited palette. It's blues and yellows, and then of course you're going to get greens, and there's later on a tiny little bit of a sort of violet-y purple that I'm using. The top half of the paper is all blues and whites, and the white is just from the paper itself. There's then the dark blue boundary across the middle of the page, and then the bottom half of the page is a mixture of blues and yellows and greens. So the composition is very simple. The composition is sort of influenced by the paintings of Mark Rothko. I like he had those rectangles of colour, usually divided by a different colour or a separation of the two colours. The difference, of course, is his art was purely abstract, whereas mine is mostly abstract, but it is representing a landscape. And I think most people, when they look at the finished painting, they would see it as a landscape. In the bottom half of the painting there, I'm trying to create different textures with the paint to make it more interesting. But also, if you create this sort of implied detail at the foreground, so the bottom of the painting, and then you have less implied detail in the middle and the background, it does create a bit of depth with the painting. So it makes it feel more like a representational landscape painting. Another thing I could point out is maybe color, not so much the values, but the saturation of the colors. So you can see there's patches of very concentrated, like pure yellow, pure green, the dark blues, and then there's other bits that are sort of grayish green or grayish blue. And I think having that mixture helps as well. It makes it, well, first of all, it makes it more realistic. It also makes it more interesting to look at. If you have no saturated color, it is all very gray and it just doesn't look great. On the other hand, if you have only saturated color, well, that kind of looks a bit boring as well. So this is the final painting once it had dried and everything. So you can see, as I say, some texture in the foreground, some scratches, some blooms where I've added in pigment onto the wet paper and it's sort of bloomed out a bit. So overall, I was quite happy with this painting. I'd maybe score it 7 out of 10 if I was going to give it a score. But it worked out as I hoped it would. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to subscribe, just click on the big red button below. You can also click on the bell icon beside that, let you know when I've uploaded a new video. At the moment, I'm trying to upload videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday.